Hello, my name's Jamie Smith. I'm a Solutions Architect here at Intercede, and welcome to a MyID Espresso video. These videos are designed to give you an overview of particular elements of MyID functionality in the time it takes to drink a nice cup of coffee. So get your nice cup of coffee. Today we're going to look at YubiKey Integration. This is very much an overview, but it'll show you how simply the YubiKey and MyID are integrated within the product and give you some idea how to roll them out. So let's have a look. Yep, so MyID is a credential management system. What we do is we manage digital identities for employees, citizens, customers, etc. We manage the multi-factor devices they use to authenticate. So that includes these wonderful little YubiKey devices that come in a number of form factors, but they're proving very popular and very simple to use. We manage those alongside traditional smart cards, virtual smart cards, etc. So what we can do is we can enable these YubiKeys to be deployed simply, securely, and at scale. Now, YubiKey has a lot of functionality. That includes things like FIDO and PKI certificates. Today we're going to concentrate on getting these issued with some PKI certificates that will enable your employees, for example, to authenticate into Windows, to be able to sign documents, etc. So within the setup, one of the initial things you have to do is set up a 9B key. This is because YubiKeys work to the PIV standard, and these are the management keys that work within the system. So here, within the MyID desktop agent, what we're going to do is go into Key Manager, and it's as simple as actually choosing a 9B key. Go here. Now, this information will be sent to you with the YubiKeys, so they will provide this information. This is the factory YubiKey settings, and I won't bother entering all of them at the moment, but basically you choose the credential type, and the rest of the information you're given. Now, what you may want to do is if you're using this as a production system, what you will want to do is actually have a customer key set as well as a factory key set up. And what this will do is enable, when we issue the YubiKeys, MyID will then change the factory keys into your custom keys. So all this is actually specified within our system security checklist PDF and our administration guide. But this means that you can't have any unwanted actors managing your devices once they've been issued through MyID. Okay, so you just set those YubiKeys 9B keys up. We will then recognize them. There we go. And what we then do is set up a credential profile within MyID to put the rest of the details around what we're going to issue. Now, credential profile is a collection of information around each type of device we issue, be that a smart card, YubiKey, virtual smart card, mobile, etc. So here we're going to choose one that I've created already. This is the YubiKey token. You name them as you want to, and there's a whole plethora of settings around this. Once you set it up, that's fine, it just stays that way. Here we're looking at MyID logon. You can set up in here the issuance settings, how long it's valid for, whether you need another pair of eyes to validate the issuance. Pin settings, because it's PIV, part of the PIV standard is the maximum pin length is 8 characters. Remember, a pin isn't a password. You never share your pin, so it's a lot more secure than a password. You can also specify minimum pin lengths, characters, etc. Mail documents, so you might want to have the pin sent to somebody, or you may be issuing this in a face-to-face model. Here we've got device profiles. So we're selecting the YubiKey one that's already set up within MyID. Now, you can create your own device profiles in there. I'll just pause this for a second. And what that can do is set up things like puck retries, the PIN policies per container within the device, the touch to sign policy, touch one-time passwords, really go into the weeds around what you can do within specifically a YubiKey. So that can be defined through that. But as standard, it's a secure issuance of a YubiKey. Here you can see within MyID we have various certificates available from the certificate authorities. So here we've actually got 2 certificate authorities. We've got a Prime key, we've got a Microsoft. So I'll keep the video rolling here. we've got a smart card user certificate there, and that container is again part of the PIV standard. It says where on the card we're going to store these certificates. There are certain defined containers within that PIV standard. So here you can add another certificate. Note that second certificate was from a different CA, so you can combine certificates from other CAs. There's an applet screen we just whizzed through. If you're putting additional applets on, that's not really applicable to the PIV standard, but you can have it on there for things like if you're doing stuff like library or canteen applets, etc., onto your cards. Here we're looking at roles. So within MyID, there's a whole built-in security infrastructure. These roles are what individual users can do. And you can say that, hey, this kind of device is only going to be used for senior administrators or members of staff with a high level of financial authority, etc. Or you may have it for all members of the staff. You can also specify who can request these devices. So you could actually have just the managers being able to request. You could have other members of staff set up to actually do the authentication and validation of these requests. It's all very configurable, but once you configured it, it's there and it'll just keep running. Here we'll keep it as is because we're just showing, and we can add a comment in. So that's defining all the information around the credential profile. So when I issue one of these devices, we know whether there's going to be a PIN mailer set up, OTP information sent to the user, whether it's going to be a self-collect, etc. So there we go. But that's all built into MyID. And let's have a look at a user actually collecting their device now. So that request can be done through our operator client. So I can request a card for Sam. Could also be done through external systems. So you may have an HR system or IDAM system that uses our APIs to request a YubiKey device for Sam. So you may not actually need to do that manually through the system at all. So lots of different ways of doing it. But we've got that request in the system. Sam's going to collect it. One of the problems you get is you're going to send a YubiKey out to, say, remote users, and they're just going to put it in a pile of stuff and they're not going to bother because their passwords are still being used, etc. So you can actually automatically go in and create a pop-up so they have to collect their device. But here what we're going to do is Sam is just logged onto his system. We're just going to create a pop-up. So if Sam's ready to use his YubiKey, he can do that and he can collect it. So we'll just show you this. So Sam's logging in. This is Sam's desktop. That pop-up comes on bottom right, and we have a simple user interface that Sam just works his way through. So this is designed for employees to be able to do a self-collect easily. So they enter a PIN for their device, and what happens is the system goes back and contacts the MyID server. We get the key pair. MyID now deals with a secure channel, and with YubiKeys now we can use secure channel 3 protocol and actually talk to the device. The device can create the private keys for things like authentication and signing certificates. We can put those requests together using MyID. We go back, talk to the server, get that information. I'll pause it there. We get that information, put it back to the card. It's a very quick process for the end user. MyID deals with all the talking to the different CAs, talking with the correct protocols for YubiKey, and now we're supporting YubiKey middleware as well as direct conversations to the card. So with YubiKeys, they're really fast devices. So that was a very fast issuance you saw there. So so your employee at home has now got a secure device with those certificates on. MyID knows they've got this active device now, so we could actually bring up people who haven't created their systems, created their YubiKeys, or we're aware of who's got what device, and we know what certificates are on that device. And that can include things like encryption certificates as well. So there, the private key is being held on the CA, or it could even be held in MyID, so that if the user then loses that device, we can reissue that encryption key, or we could also put that encryption key to things like mobile devices. So you can use the same encryption key that's on your YubiKey to, for example, encrypt emails on your mobile device. Anyway, nice simple process. The user now has their YubiKey. So we're going to go in, Excuse me, here's Sam. So he's now got this, the system recognises the YubiKey's been plugged in, and it's got that little token there. Click on it, and that's it. He's logged into Windows. A very simple end-to-end process there. So you've seen the setup of YubiKey, incorporating that into a credential profile so we can see what needs to go on the device and who gets it, and then the issuance. So within MyID, we have native vendor-independent integration there. YubiKeys built into the system, very easy to set up, so you've seen that. There's security all around it. We've only touched on it with those groups, but you can specify who does what within the system, what workflows they have available, and also which users they can actually see. All this is audited and reported, and that can be signed non-repudiation auditing. And as you've seen with that self-service client, it's a simple user experience there. So that's an indication there, a very simple way of how we set up MyID and YubiKeys. So you can take your pile of YubiKeys, securely issue it to your employees, and you've got that central level of management around that. So any further questions, please let me know. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your coffee. Cheers.